Hello and welcome to Golden Geography. Today we're going to be talking about the OCR Geography A-Level Changing Spaces Making Places unit, which is a common topic across a lot of the different exam boards with some slight tweaks here and there, but we're going to be looking at it for the OCR A-Level. We're going to be starting by looking at key question 1, which is what's in a place. We're going to be focusing on just the key ideas behind this because it's really studied in context of case studies. So there is a couple of case studies that will come up separately on a different video, but here we're just looking at the key ideas behind what's in a place. And part 1A says places are multifaceted. That means they've got many faces, so they appear differently to different places, and different factors influence what they are like. So we're going to think a little bit about some of those different faceted elements that make and build up a place and how they can change a place. Very first one we're going to think about is demographics. The demographic characteristics of a place are really important. People make up the places that they are in, and the demographics of a place can change. Some places have lots of young people, places particularly like universities, and some of our big cities have at least one, if not two universities that have 10, 15,000 people in them, defining and making that place really distinct. Similarly, we have places with lots of old people, places that are retirement, very often coastal places or rural areas where people want to retire and enjoy the countryside. But you could also here be looking at different ethnicities. So there are parts of our cities that are known as Chinatown or Jamaica Town, where you have people from those different ethnicities and those backgrounds that dominate those areas and influence some of the socioeconomics. Similarly, it could be religion, it could be sexuality. There are lots of different demographic factors that might influence a place, looking at how places function, the socioeconomics tied to those demographics, and what the people actually need and do there. So socioeconomics, this is a little bit tricky. You're looking here at social economics. You're looking at the economics or the jobs or the activities, the financial activities of a place and how it ties into the people who live there. Potentially the activities, the social activities they do, or the services that they need and tie and generate for that place. So it's a little bit tricky. You're tying here people's activities with the economic activity of a place. So if we're thinking about old people, what are they interested in? It might be lunch clubs or knitting clubs or golf clubs or libraries or areas and activities that tie into their interests. If you're talking about universities with lots of students, then the socioeconomics, you'll see there will be potentially nightclubs or cafes or libraries or things that are interested or needed by younger people. We do have cultural characteristics. Predominantly, if you're looking at one country, you will find a dominance of that cultural characteristic. So here in the UK, British values, British norms, celebrating things like bonfire night, Christmas, the King's coronation, very British, very cultural. But actually, when you start looking at places, there are some places that are very distinctive. So if you do go to London and you do go to Chinatown, it's very distinctively different to the rest of London. And that is because it's reflecting the people there. They've developed a very specific culture and cultural identity in that particular part of London. We also have political characteristics. Again, this can shape a place on a national scale. You can be looking at a place more locally. So what is the local councillor? What are their political views? Are they a Labour councillor or a Lib Dem councillor or Green councillor? Or what's your local MP? Are they Labour predominantly at the moment or Conservative as they were with the last Parliament? What is happening? What kind of politics do you have? And actually that can go beyond political party. You could be talking about Brexit or Scottish independence. and what are the politics there, and what do people think of it, and how that shapes their place. And if you do look at places that have a history of political tension, like Northern Ireland, the political characteristics really do shape what those places are like. They play a really important role. And finally, we have the built and natural characteristics. The built environment is what we as human beings have built around us, our homes, the places we work, the places that we worship, the places that we socialise in. And then the natural environment, or the physical environment. Are we in a forested area? Are we on a coastal zone, near mountains, flat land, areas that rain a lot or are very dry? What kind of physical characteristics do we have? And these two often work hand in hand. So you will find in areas that are very rural, potentially built environment that's single story or 2 stories, you won't find multi-story buildings in rural areas. But in cities you will, but you won't find a huge amount of open green space. Places can be connected. You can have a single place that is connected to multiple other places because of their history, because of similarities they have. And that's what past connections are. You're looking at a place and thinking about the past and how it was linked or connected to another place. So here we have the Colosseum, obviously really key and essential part of Roman history, really central to the Roman Empire. And that Roman Empire spread all across Europe, parts of modern day Middle East and through to North Africa. So there are lots of connections with this. Parts of Britain are connected to the Roman Empire and to the Colosseum, but so are parts of modern day Tunisia or Morocco. They share some of those connections and similarities historically. Obviously, this depends on how old your place is. So if you are looking at a new town like Milton Keynes that's only 100 years old or less, then it won't have the same connections. And the same for younger countries like the USA or Australia. They may not have a history going back 2,000–3,000 years. But there are many parts of the world that do have much older histories. Present day connections are the same. You're looking at a place today and how it is connected, what links or similarities it has with other places. And globalization really does play a key part with that. There are places that have very distinct cultural events or very distinct demographics, but may start to incorporate different cultural elements from other parts of the world because of globalization. Globalization is the interlinking and the sharing of ideas and products from different parts of the world. So if we think about here in the UK, well, we are receiving a lot of products from America. Apple, a lot of you will have Apple products, Apple phones or tablets, designed in America, made in China. But also we're taking on American cultures. That might be the way that we spell things, or it might be celebrating things like Halloween, or even Thanksgiving. So some of these elements that are tying our places together are becoming much more connected. If we're thinking about how places are connected, we need to also think about people. People take ideas, culture, experiences with them. So the moving of people will help to shape the demographics and the socioeconomics and the culture we find in a place and help to build the profile of those places over time. So if we think about London, it's a big multicultural city, but a lot of what it has today, the multiculturalism it has today, stems from hundreds, thousands of years of migration. Migration from the Romans, which helped to build London as a city, as a port, through to the Victorian era when we had the British Empire and products, tea, coffee, spices coming from all over the world into the UK, through to modern migration from parts of Eastern Europe, North Africa, the Middle East coming into and changing parts of our cities predominantly, but also starting to influence rural areas too. And you can see that in the built environment. It's not just the people and the celebrations, but they are bringing with them their food, their culture, and very often you will see things like supermarkets pop up that brings products from those home countries, and they are changing our built environment. We also have shifting flows of resources. So we are here in the south of the UK, we're in the New Forest, and if we think about the New Forest, it's had a lot of resources that have influenced it over many, many hundreds of years. Predictably, wood, timber, used in building ships in Portsmouth, like the Mary Rose. Big history of the wood from the New Forest supplying the needs of the UK. Today, probably you're more confident or conscious of things like New Forest ice cream or local products like soaps made within the local area using local resources, but aimed at not just local people but the tourist industry too. And these flows of products bring money into the area as well as raising the profile of the place. And finally, this is a little bit more tricky for rural areas, but we do need to think a little bit about the flows of money and investment. Traditionally, when this specification was first written, we were part of the EU, so we did receive EU funding into the area. Now, obviously, post-Brexit, that EU funding has stopped, but in many places it has changed and been either replaced by funding from the British government or TNCs. And TNCs do invest in places and can change them. And the pictures we have here on this slide show us Apple, which has invested heavily in China, and most Apple products are made in China. And they have resulted in effectively villages turning into towns due to the sheer number of people that live there. Big buildings, big infrastructure production by Apple in order to make the products, employing tens of thousands of people. Offering some social benefits, education, housing, but also big significant changes to the built environment in parts of China where these factories are found. And then finally, knowledge economy. If you're looking at the knowledge economy, it's really key in developed countries, particularly advanced countries like the UK, the USA, Germany, Japan. We are investing into our universities because we want to educate people and provide a workforce that can have modern skills, particularly those based in technology, science, engineering and maths. So these STEM subjects that are driving our economies further. So many big universities are found within cities and they can drive that knowledge economy. On a smaller scale, you might find local colleges that provide evening classes to try and build up knowledge economy and often technology skills within the older population, but maybe not looking quite so much as to the future, for the future workforce. Okay, covered quite a bit there. We need to think about this in context of a single place. So make sure you're happy. Use the colours here. Red, don't know it at all, go back. Amber, I know it, but I need to think about it a little bit more. Green, happy days, totally makes sense. Use those colours for these 3 bullet points. Once you're happy with the concepts, then have a look at the videos on the case studies and apply them to 2 different areas that you can contrast. So ideally a rural area and an urban area. Thanks for listening.